What's going on, everyone? Great in here. LPM podcast. We got an awesome guest today. We got Dre in the building. What's going on, Dre?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on. What part of the world are you coming to us from tonight?
Just north of Toronto in Canada. So
love it. We just had Canada Day. What'd you do for Canada Day?
Nothing. Just barbecued and yard work, right?
Yeah, that's like the perfect Canada Day. That's like, it's July 4th today, 4th of July. I bet our American friends are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, just setting stuff on fire.
Yeah. We're so used to these summers being so hot and smoky now that kind of just settling into this summer where it isn't smoky for the first time in years where I am.
Yeah, we didn't really get much of the smoke. Was it last year? But just enough to feel it. But I know on the West Coast it was really bad.
It's crazy. It's like we live in this post-apocalyptic kind of story where you're like, oh, this summer you can see outside. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, everything's not red and covered in ash.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So on the podcast, we've been having artists on and we've been talking about art. Give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself. Give us your story if you can.
Yeah. So I mean, I was heavy into art when I was in high school, going up to 17, 18. And then life took me to a different path, and I kind of gave it up almost completely for 15 to 20 years. And I got so immersed in digital, just being on the computer all day, that I needed an outlet. So I call it maybe 6-7 years ago, I decided, or I said to myself, hey, I really used to like drawing and painting and whatever. So I started doing that kind of when I got home from work. And I just started getting back into it, started posting some stuff on IG, and one day Upper Deck reached out. Cool. I had no idea what anything was.
Right.
Like, hey, would you like to do some of this stuff? And I was like, okay, cool, I'll do some sketch cards. I don't know what it is, but I'll figure it out. And that was 2017.
So what was the first set you worked on for UD?
Premiere 17, I believe.
Cool.
Would have been the first one, yeah. And I had no clue what it was. I got the message on Instagram and the email with the details, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I heard Marvel Upper Deck. I remember, the trading cards, comic books from when I was a kid.
Right.
So I was excited to do it, and then I just went online trying to figure out what it is. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. I didn't know what to expect. And,
right.
Yeah, and then Premiere is a set where you get the characters assigned. So I didn't know that. Right. So then I started preparing, and I did all these pencil sketches that I was going to do onto the cards. And then I finally got the cards, and it's like, who the hell is Rocket Raccoon? I had no idea.
But Viv Vision. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I just got random characters that I never heard of. I was like, oh, I got Wolverine at least.
Right.
So I knew that one. But yeah, I had a couple that I had to look up.
That's kind of cool that they reached out to you. And that you were just kind of there, right place, right time kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that with other people that I spoke to that kind of came into the sketch card world at that time, that's really how they were kind of scouted, I guess.
Right.
UD reached out to them. Some of them they bumped into at cons. And they're like, okay, to look at their portfolio, their samples, okay, you know what? Would you like to do some sketch cards? But I think nowadays, because it's gotten so much more notoriety and it became so much more popular than it was in 2017, 2016.
Right.
I think now they're just waiting for people to approach them.
Yeah.
And that's just my guess. I don't know exactly what happens behind the scenes there, but it seems like if you want to do stuff for UD, just reach out to them and cross your fingers that they get back to you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know that a couple of people who are friends in the groups have done exactly those steps recently and have submitted and received feedback as to what their role is going to be. I think that's cool. What do you think about sketch cards as an insert now? So, you've been around since 17 with Premiere and these products where sketch cards were a real focus of the sets. And now, for Marvel Platinum, for example, they're so rare Does that concern you that sketch cards seem to be becoming a rarity in some of the sets, or how do you feel about that?
Um, I'm not too worried about it. I'm not like too attached to sketch cards and having the inserts there. So personally, I'm not worried. I mean, I'm like as horrible as going to say, if sketch cards go away tomorrow,
Yeah,
I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Like
right.
I'm not a hardcore collector. I'm not a chaser of any specific insert. I just like cool art. So it's not really going to impact me per se too much. But if you look at something like platinum, and I think platinum is more of an anomaly, but potentially um, a reset in the sketch card world because it's become so flooded and the range of call it quality for lack of better words and
Yeah,
detail stuff that goes is just so broad that it's creating a lot of drama and friction within collectors and artists and the publishers and so on. So if
right.
the publishers decide to like what they do with platinum where it is an primarily an original art set and the only sketch cards in that set are from some of the artists that contributed to the original art.
Right.
That I think that's a cool thing. That's a good thing because when you do hit a sketch, and it's one in whatever, like 40 cases or whatever the case is with platinum, nobody really knows, and you have a chance of hitting something like a Bill Sienkiewicz, which is basically unattainable in
Right.
the real world, right?
Yeah.
For most people, or Casey Parson, or Miles, or I don't know if Dave Palumbo did any sketches for that set, but
I don't think that Dave did, but I won't go. Don't hold me to that.
yeah, I can't remember the full name, like the full roster of people that did, because not everyone did, and they
Right.
are very limited. So I mean, if that's what they do going forward, right? I don't think
Mhm.
it's the worst thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot harder to find a sketch, but at the same time, I think that sketch is going to be potentially of a higher caliber, both
Right.
from quality but also the pedigree because it's original art by an established commercial artist.
Right. Absolutely. So when you're saying that it doesn't really concern you if the sketch cards go away from the sets, it kind of gives me the vibe that the majority of the work you do for people is AP or on your own cardstock kind of thing.
Yeah, as much as I like doing sketch cards,
Yeah.
I'd much rather do bigger things. Like if
Yeah.
I'm going 5x7, 8x10, or bigger, and but because I don't do this full time and my schedule is hectic, I take forever with commissions. But I've been really fortunate to have a nice balance of people that do want sketch card size and also people that are just like, I want a sketch cover or I want a 5x7, 8x10, or 11x17. And they've all been really patient.
Yeah.
So, um, it kind of works for me because I don't I don't want to be like labeling myself or pigeonholing myself as a sketch card artist, which I
Yeah.
don't think is really a real term as much as just a common label. I do this because I enjoy doing it, and if it's business card size or if it's a full blown canvas, doesn't matter to me.
Very cool. What projects do you have on the go right now? Do you want to talk about anything? I know you guys can't talk about sets you're currently doing that haven't released, but what are you looking forward to right now?
So I'm not working on any sets for Upper Deck. I haven't done anything new for them for a while. I think Premiere is the last thing that I really did.
Okay.
So all I'm doing now is kind of some of the stuff that I wanted to do,
Cool.
exploring more mediums, and have a long waiting list for people that want commissions of various things.
Yeah.
So kind of working on those, and I'm trying to explore different mediums and different materials. So it's kind of nice that I can just do that. And
Yeah. That leads me into my next question. Why don't we talk about mediums? Your work typically looks much different than a lot of sketch cards that are painted in acrylic with watercolor or felt pen. Do you want to talk to us about your preference in medium?
so my core medium is acrylic, but I don't think I use acrylic the way it's meant to be used, and that might be one of the reasons why some of my stuff looks different like a lot different than some other people who use acrylic. Um, and it's really I kind of got there out of necessity
Okay.
because I when I was younger I did have a formal arts training, but we never really got too much into acrylic or oil. And oil is something that I'm really kind of itching to properly explore. And there's some people, some fellow artists that are really kind of peer pressuring me into it. So I am working on something there, trying to learn how to use that. But I'm using acrylic more as a watercolor because
Okay.
that's really how I was. That was really the medium that I really, really explored using, but I never really liked the look of watercolor.
Right.
So then I do a lot of heavily diluted paint. So it's got the flow and look of watercolor, but once it's dry, it's acrylic, so you can go light to dark, dark to light. You can, like, it's endless. It's not like you're kind of limited by that. Um, and yeah, just a mixture of different approaches and techniques that I've picked up from a lot of YouTube videos.
So I was going to ask about that. I find YouTube's amazing. Being able to follow along with painting tutorials and just get exposed to such an instant education in painting. What's something you learned recently in art that was from YouTube? What was what's a skill that you've picked up from YouTube lately?
So one of the things that part of exploring different mediums and different things, I'm really trying to incorporate airbrushing into my workflow, and I've owned airbrushes and paints for like 2 years now, and I've kept on dabbling and trying different things, and nothing really worked. And then, in terms of giving me the look that I want, and I'm not going for that airbrushed kind of like gas tank of a Harley Davidson type of airbrush look. I'm starting to use an airbrush to fill in gaps within my workflow. And it wasn't until recently where I discovered an airbrush channel. I think his name is Dread FX. He's British or something. He's a great guy. It's probably one of the best kind of art tutorial things I've seen on YouTube. And he actually talks about using isopropyl alcohol as a thinner instead of airbrush medium or any other type of mediums. And I tried it, and it's just like, this is a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unreal. And while I don't try to follow along with his tutorial and his work, because what he creates is not what I want to create, just listening to why he mixes paint the way he mixes and how he uses the pressure, and him explaining the different types of airbrushes and kind of the pros and cons of everything, really helped me understand what I need in order to create what I want to create. So it's not so much about finding a YouTube video and going step by step, trying to mix the colors and what brush are you using and what brand of paint and how sharp is your pencil, because that stuff doesn't matter. It's about picking up the piece of information that's going to help you achieve what you want to achieve. Or for me anyways, this is what I want to achieve.
Do you have a group of people that you enjoy painting with? Like, is there a group of you in your town or in your community and you guys get together and do art together? Or is this a solo activity for you?
I would love that, but I don't have kind of the time or the schedule that allows me to kind of find those groups.
Right.
So as we're talking in the the back room or before you start recording, is I do this in the evenings and on the weekends. So it's 10 o'clock at night now.
Yeah.
Usually I'd be painting at this time, right? And for me
to gotten into your painting night.
No, it's okay. But to find a group of people to get together at a bar or somewhere and just kind of collectively paint would be great. I used to, during the pandemic, I used to do the draw and paint streams with various other artists, and that was really cool because you are able to just kind of shoot the shit while you're working on whatever you're working and bounce ideas off each other. So being able to do that in person would be cool, but I don't think it's feasible for me. Also, I live in the woods. I kind of live in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So
geography can play into that for sure.
Geography also plays in it.
When you say like, oh, I'm north of Toronto, for like I'm north of Edmonton, but I'm 4.5 hours north of Edmonton.
I'm an hour.
Sometimes it's just a convenient landmark telling people what city you are, but it's like But truth be told, it's a stretch. I'm not sure out of the local pub in Toronto.
Yeah, like my nearest neighbor is a kilometer away, so it's a half a mile.
Nice.
So yeah, and I'm just surrounded by woods. It's great. It's quiet, but it's far from everything else.
That's right. So, do you collect cards? Do you collect Marvel cards? Do you have a collection in binders? Tell us a little bit about your background with Marvel cards.
So when I was like 12, 13, like early teens, I got really into it. And it was because of Jusko's masterpieces.
Yeah.
That really kind of, and I know a lot of people of our generation were really drawn into it based on that set.
Yeah.
And I used to buy them at a little video store, like a video rental place called Pick a Flick.
Cool.
And it was a big videotape place, and they had some collectibles at the counter. And then one day we went to rent a movie, and the guy was opening a pack of masterpieces, and I saw him. I was like, this is not comic book cartoon art, right?
Yeah.
This is a balance of, fine art with pop culture. I've never seen that before.
Right.
So, I picked up a pack and I got a couple of cards, and then every week, me and a couple of friends from school on the way from school, we'd pop in and buy a pack. I think they were $2 a pack or something like that.
Love it.
And we all got complete sets. And I still have my complete set from back.
Awesome.
It's all dinged up and chewed on and stuff's peeled. But that was the first one. And then the second masterpieces, I think it was the next one was the one that had the 4 artists. No, it had mixed artists.
It had 3. I think there were 3 main ones. So you got your 3 cards on the 9x9 or the 3x3s.
Yeah. And then, the Boris and Julie one, of course, that was in 96s. I had that whole complete set. Again, buying them one pack at a time. Sold that a long time ago for a fraction of what it would be going for today.
Right.
But yeah, at one point I was really, really into cards and into the comics, and not so much for collect and invest type of thing. It was just about appreciating the art and really liking it. And I got really big into comics and was reading X-Men, X-Force, X-Factor, like religiously for about a year and a half. Worked in a comic book store for a bit. But then I got older and I found other interests. So kind of set that to the side and kind of stopped. And nowadays I did get a box of MM22. I just couldn't help myself. And I got a couple of boxes of Midnight Suns and a couple of boxes of Platinum. And it was just because of the art. Mm-hmm. But then I realized like this is really not the best use of the money, especially at the prices some of these are going for. Okay. And then while the art's really cool and I'm looking at my collection of cards, like I'd really much rather get prints that I can appreciate in larger size or original art.
Right.
So I think I'm done buying boxes and packs.
Yeah.
I'll just buy the individual pieces as I can, or if I see something really cool on ComC or eBay or whatever. And I did go heavy on not Platinum, Unbound 1 and 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but then I swore off Unbound 3, and now I'm looking at the art and just like, fuck it. So I'll go buy one here and there.
So, from the sounds of it, you've just listed quite a bit of stuff. It sounds like you're a pretty active participant in Marvel cards. I see you in the chats all the time. I always see you on live streams, like chatting in the chat room and all that. It's great seeing one of the artists who contribute to the work participate in the community. I think the community recognizes that and appreciates that. What do you like about the Marvel card community?
I like that it just kind of, it's, I have to choose my words wisely here. I can tell you what I like, and I can also tell you what I don't like. But what I like is that it is, at times, a really great place to just unplug and have a community of people or a group of people to just talk about one common thing.
Right.
A bunch of guys and gals geeking out about, Fleer Ultra Wolverine. I know everybody's losing their mind about Fleer Ultra Wolverine this week. Can't talk about anything else. Or, especially in Unbound year 1 towards the end, where it got like really heated. It was kind of fun. But then at that same point, and it really seemed to be Unbound to have kind of triggered some more hostility in the community.
Right.
Because all of a sudden the values just skyrocketed around everything.
Right.
And then that kind of brings into the part that I don't like. It's the hostility and the arguments that it's causing over, really at the end of the day, it's just cardboard, pretty pictures on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I agree with you. I find the arguing in the community to be ridiculous. But I mean, on the internet, I don't think there's a corner of the internet to be able to avoid arguing. Something that that I look at in a bit of a divide, I guess, in the groups is there are some people that are very clearly only interested in these cards because they are excited about the dollar amount that it can bring. And there's another group of people who are really interested in these cards because they love the artwork on them. And I find that those two groups clash.
Well, yeah, because it's totally different objectives, right?
It is. And it's under the same umbrella. So the two sides really do clash. And I've noticed that as well. I don't know what the solution to that is, except for making sure you, as a collector, know why you're collecting.
Yeah, and I don't think there is a solution. I mean, it's people have different opinions and different reasons why they're collecting or, investing, however they do. And as the community and the audience gets bigger, that just everything amplifies. I remember, again, going back during COVID time, where it's really when I really started getting involved in the community because we had nothing else to do. And it was
right.
It was a much smaller community overall, right? And while you still had those little sparks and those little fires start here and there, they were smaller. But now, even if you look at like the MCCW or the Marvel Cards Group, they're like 4 or 5 times what they were 3 years ago.
Right.
I think combined within all those two groups, which are kind of the bigger ones, there's a bunch of smaller ones. There's probably 10, 11,000 unique people that are involved in these conversations. 3-4 years ago, it was like 2,000 people.
Right.
Right. So now when something blows up, you have 10,000 people's opinions.
Right.
So it becomes louder.
It definitely has become louder. And I mean, like those numbers you were just putting out there definitely is a testament to how the hobby has grown and to the reach that it's had. It's interesting to me, like it's interesting to see the different people who are coming into it, because if there's one thing that everybody seems to have in common, it's that they were exposed to Marvel cards as a kid. Like
that seems to be universal.
That's the universal. So we all start at this point where we were like, what on earth are those? I want all of them. And then as we get older and people rediscover them and find out that they're still making them in newer sets, those children that were interested in it emerge again as very different adults, as we all are, as you grow up. It's interesting to see the whole mix of people in it. I enjoy interviewing artists on here because the one thing that I love to talk to you guys about is how art has changed over the last little while. And we were talking about original art sets and platinum. We're talking about sketch cards. And now you start to see things creeping into the world like AI art. Can I get your opinion about some of the things that are going on with artificial intelligence and images in comic books?
Yeah, I think the AI part is so new and so exciting that for the most part, people don't know how to react.
Right.
I've heard stories of artists being dropped because the publishers will be, decided to go to the AI route, and that's not cool.
No.
But it's kind of the natural evolution. And I remember when Photoshop and digital painting and digital drawing became there was a breaking point where the technology really became mainstream.
Yeah.
where a lot of traditional people were freaking out and like, oh, what am I going to do? And it was the same thing with graphic design. The people that are doing like letter setting and pre-press setup, and all of a sudden that all went digital. It kind of feels the same. I don't like the fact that the AI art is becoming mainstream, and not because I don't think it can't meet the commercial need. It's because I don't think people as a whole, as a mass, understand the difference between AI art and, I don't want to use the word real art or traditional art because this is all going to change in a month anyways. But more traditional, more conventional artwork. But what I think is, and it's not really related so much to AI, but AI is really bringing it more to the forefront, is an overall lack of understanding of intellectual property and copyright, which is something that's always been an issue in the collectible space. Fan art from day one, the recreating other people's work, panels from movies, panels from comic books and stuff like that without crediting. And I see more and more people, especially younger people, that have no sense of the fact that, hey, if you Google image something and you drew the exact same thing, you should tell people that that's a copy, right? And I hear the argument, oh, well, but I changed the color, or I moved the hand, or I turned the head. It's like, yeah, well, no, it's not.
I agree.
And AI isn't the exact same thing, because I can't remember, somewhere in one of the podcasts or videos, lives or whatever, somebody was mentioning that, all AI is really doing is photo bashing a bunch of pictures, the same way matte artists use it, or matte painters do nowadays, where they go take a bunch of pictures. The difference is that a matte painter that does this commercially has the rights to all those pictures, and then they bash it together to make a really cool scene. AI to a certain point is doing the same thing,
right?
But without having the rights to the source material.
Every once in a while, I'll come across those Disney images of the illustrators doing the panels for the animations, and like lipping the words of the dialogue to try to see how to draw it. And it's just interesting to see the progression of everything. And as you had mentioned, like Photoshop coming around, I never actually thought about that comparison of how technology's gotten introduced into the art world and the reaction, especially the initial reaction that people have to it. And, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember when Photoshop came out and people losing their minds, being like, well, this changes everything, and like, why would you, like, they would prefer people know how to draw and be an illustrator, and then know how to paint, and then move on to all of that. And it's interesting. I never really thought about that point. I think that's a really good point to bring up.
And it's a very similar point where digital photography came around.
Yes.
Right. I mean, I had a few clients that were photographers back in kind of early 2000s, when digital cameras really became capable. Like DSLRs came out, and you ended up with like proper pictures. And I had a couple of people, they're like, oh, this is never going to take off. The pictures are never going to be as nice as they are on film, and you can't do all the development stuff. And some of those guys ended up adapting, and some of those guys just like disappeared, because at the early stages of digital photography, we had those like clunky toaster looking 1.2 megapixel cameras that took horrible pictures. That didn't compare to film. But then once they started coming like 10 megapixel, 11, 12, 13 with the DSLRs, where you could swap lenses,
right?
Then it totally changed. And then the post-processing that was done originally in the traditional lightroom with the red light with all the chemicals, all of a sudden became digital with applications like Adobe Lightroom, which is what it is. And I'm sure there's other ones, Capture One and so on, where you can do all that post-processing and create that look. It's a lot of hostility and a lot of fear against that when those came out, but it became mainstream, and it did become a skill, because, and even Photoshop, like anybody can open up Photoshop. And I remember when, I think it was Photoshop 4, and just to date myself, I started using Photoshop when it was just Photoshop. So it's not 2, and it was just Photoshop.
So that makes you 87. No, I'm just kidding.
No. But yeah, I remember I was thinking it was a great time when Photoshop came out.
Yeah.
And I was using it since. And I think it was Photoshop 4, Photoshop 5 that introduced the cloud filter and the lens flare. And for 6 months, it was clouds and lens flares everywhere.
Yeah.
Everything was clouds and lens flares. Like every ad, every background, every poster, everything was that stuff. And that was kind of a cool toy. But then people started realizing, okay, you can't just press a button and wow, art, right? And I think
and nowadays, for a comparison on your iPhone, you can take a great photo with arguably a fantastic camera and then run it through a filter on Instagram or just in the editing thing. So it's all these people who have learned this incredible skill of Photoshop that was controversial at one point can now go on their phone in about 20 seconds and produce an incredible image that's clear, sharp, and concise.
Yeah, but there is a difference between taking a picture with your phone and running some built-in like click features.
I agree completely.
And properly lighting a picture with studio lights and getting the angle and the perspective and the depth of field and then post-processing that.
Absolutely. I agree with you there. I just think that at times, like you were mentioning, it's lost on certain portions of the public in being able to catch that. Similar to AI, where there's some images to you and I that look very off from the anatomy or the perspective, and to other people, it's just right over their head. It's just another image of a superhero.
Exactly. And it's usually the fingers that give it away.
There you go. A lot of people say it's the hands. Yeah. There's a lot. I find the hair sometimes too. Sometimes there's some pretty funky stuff going on with hairdos on that AI stuff. But yeah.
But I mean, going back to your original question, like I think there is, whether we like it or not, there's going to be a space for AI in art. It's just, I don't think it's there yet. The image quality of stuff that we see daily on social media, it's clearly off.
Right.
But at a certain point, it won't be. And it's going to become a specialized skill like anything else.
Yeah.
And potentially you'll have a place in the workflow of a traditional artist as well.
Right.
Whether you like it or not, I don't think we can avoid it.
Like it or not seems to never interfere with it happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's the world moves so fast today. We get exposed to so much. We consume so much material. Sometimes it's overwhelming at how quickly things change.
Yeah. And I think we just all have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any concerns or speculations about what's going on, you can't rely on just the information that's being fed to you. You got to kind of do a little bit of your own research.
Right. A little bit of original thought. Never hurt anybody.
Yeah. Because you can't just wait for the information to be spoon-fed to you.
Right. Dre, we're getting pretty much close to the end here. Is there anything that you want to share with people? Where can we find you? I'm going to share it all in the description anyways. But where would you like people to find you?
Yeah, my main thing is Instagram. It's Dre Studios. It's the same thing on YouTube. Occasionally I'll post videos or share interviews that I'm on, and same thing on Facebook as well. But Instagram is really kind of my main thing. I have a Twitter, but I can't remember what it is now. I know it's not Dre Studios.
I'll drop whatever links you want me to down there in the description so that people watching this can go ahead and follow Dre. You got to see some of this art. You got to follow along. He would appreciate it. I would appreciate it. Dre, thanks so much for being a guest on the channel. Always fun having you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, you as well. And everybody watching this, if you like this kind of stuff, keep following along with the podcast. Season 2, we're interviewing artists. We're having tons of fun. Thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe if you like what you see, and we'll keep going on the next one. Thanks a lot, Dre. Yeah, smash that like button. Listen to Dre. Thanks, everybody.